Hello, Leon. It's your Zayde Mason. I'm here today to continue reading for you the ABCs of engineering. When we last left off, we talked about R is for requirements. So we talked about requirements, and I mentioned to you that we would continue on with S is for screw. So a screw is something that holds things together, usually wood, but it can also be metal or many other different types of materials, but mostly you see wood and metal that screws hold things together. There are different kinds of screws, but the interesting thing about screw is that it is a simple machine, as mentioned, that holds things together. And when a screw turns, it changes its rotation into a straight motion. So as you turn a screw, which is usually clockwise to screw in, and counterclockwise or anti-clockwise as stated in Europe or England to come back out, but it's not always that way, typically. The spiral ridges along the side of the screw, spiral ridges, and notice that they're curved in sort of a downward motion, those grip the material and help it stay in place. And screws can be made of steel, iron, brass, or even plastic, or even wood. They can be made of all kinds of things. And again, they turn the motion of the screw into a direction, a linear direction, as it goes up or down, depending on which way you turn it. And there's all kinds of different heads for screws, and there's also all kinds of different distances between these and how big the grooves are. And you'll learn all about screws eventually, and someday you'll get a chance to build things, and I'm sure you'll look forward to seeing all the different types that exist. And I'm happy to take you to a hardware store and show you all about that if nobody else does. T. T is for tolerance. Now, tolerance is actually really important. Notice that it says 12 inches plus or minus 0.5 inches. And the plus or minus 0.5, the plus or minus tells you how much range you can have in this case. Now, there's tolerances for pretty much anything you can build, and even with screws you need tolerances. But a tolerance shows how much wiggle room there is, and by wiggle room we mean how much you can make a mistake or how far off it can be. Or sometimes things are dynamic, like when metal heats up or when wood even heats up, it expands and gets bigger. Or if it gets cold, it gets smaller and contracts. So you need some amount of wiggle room, some tolerance, to allow for that expansion or contraction or to make mistakes. Making parts perfectly is not possible. So every cut or mold will be exactly what is needed. Tolerance says how much a part can differ from the goal. And if a beam is too long, it might not fit. And if it's too short, then the building might fall down if you don't build it properly. Only parts within a project's tolerance can be used. So you know how far off you can be when you first build it if it's incorrect, or how much it can change in a situation in which it does change. Okay, moving on. U is for units, and there are all kinds of units. There's units of distance, there's units of temperature, there's units of weight or force. So in this case, they use distance because it's easy to show on a piece of paper, like a meter or a yard or a foot. Units help communicate meaningful measurements, and they show you what type of measurement you're using based on what type of unit it shows. Many different units help define different quantities like distances or time. Sometimes distance is measured in centimeters and sometimes in inches, depending on what country we're in or what the measurement system is. Sometimes even within the same situation, like NASA can use feet or meters, and sometimes disastrously if they don't get it right within themselves. Temperature has many kinds of units too, like Kelvin or Celsius or Fahrenheit, which it says. Anyway, so that's U is for unit. V is for viscosity. Ooh, I love viscosity. And especially when you have non-Newtonian fluids like ketchup, which change viscosity based on velocity or force. So the viscosity of a fluid is a measure of how thick or viscous or pory it is, like honey. High viscosity fluids are honey, as mentioned, glue, and maple syrup. Water and milk are very low viscosity fluids, and in extreme conditions, there are extreme superfluids that have no viscosity and climb the walls of their containers all by themselves. I made one of those when I was in an undergrad. I made a helium superfluid, and it climbed up over the edge of the container to fill from the outside to the inside, which is called self-siphoning. We'll talk about that someday. W is for wrench. Wrenches. Okay, well, wrenches. I carry a wrench on me all the time if I could get my wrench out. And see, that is a wrench. So I carry one with me, and this one is an adjustable wrench, or as they call it in England, a spanner, because it spans, I guess. A wrench is a hand tool that helps turn nuts and bolts. So you can do that. See how similar those are? And you can tighten bolts and nuts sometimes onto screws, usually on screws. Nuts and bolts are called fasteners and are used to hold things together. A wrench is a lever that gives a mechanical advantage on the nut or the bolt. This means it makes twisting the nut or bolt easier than doing it by hand. Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, and you'll learn about that as you build things. Well, we've got 3 letters to go, but I'm going to stop here, and we'll continue on with X for xenon, next time, okay? And so I will leave you with that. I love you very much, Leon, and I'm looking forward to finishing this book with you and continuing on. I hope you have a wonderful day. This is your Zayde Mason checking out.